The House has just passed House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's bill to raise the debt ceiling with spending cuts. The bill passed very tight vote, 217 to 215. House Republicans made changes to that legislation early this morning, very early this morning, to win over holdouts within their own conference. Multiple Republican lawmakers who said they were previously opposed to the plan, well, they changed their minds.
Because I haven't seen him do anything. So right now, this is the only place that has lifted the debt limit. So the Democrats are putting the country in jeopardy. The president, by ignoring to even negotiate. The majority of Americans overwhelmingly want us to sit down and negotiate, to make sure we end our dependency on China, to stop the inflations the Democrats created by spending $6 trillion. No one in America believes there's not one place that you can't find a place that you could have savings in what Washington spends. And I think it's up to them now.
Yes,
ma'am.
What do you do now in order to bring President Biden to the table besides passing this? Is there anything?
I don't know what we're supposed to do. We've done our job. I've sat down with the president on February 1st. He ignored the rest of the time. He treats it just like the border. He wants to ignore it and thinks it goes away. That doesn't work in America. He's putting the American economy in jeopardy by his lack of action. Now he should sit down and negotiate. We passed this.
That is a triumphant, I think it's fair to say, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy saying the House Republicans have done their job. They're the only body in Washington, according to the Speaker, and he's right about this, to vote to increase the debt ceiling. But what came along with it is not something that Senate Democrats are willing to embrace, and certainly not the Biden White House. Nikole Killion joins us now. Nikole, of course, CBS News congressional correspondent. It's been a fast-moving story and afternoon for you, Nikole. Catch us up.
Yeah, it has been. Well, I can tell you in terms of a triumphant, there was equally triumphant sounds on the House floor when they passed this debt limit bill. I was standing outside of the House gallery, and you could hear audible cheers as soon as it cleared. So on the part of Republicans, it's not just Speaker McCarthy doing a victory lap here, but House Republicans are really, as a whole, even though there were just 4 defectors, but really as a whole, embracing this bill and hoping that it jumpstarts negotiations with the White House.
And that really is the crucial dynamic here, is it not, Nikole? The idea that if the House Republicans didn't pass this, they'd have no leverage whatsoever. Now they may have at least some leverage by saying, hey, we voted to do this. We're not jeopardizing the economy. Come talk to us.
Well, exactly, but it's not clear that the White House will do that. They have already issued a veto threat should this bill advance in the Senate, although that's highly unlikely because Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has made clear this bill is dead on arrival. And the White House has also made clear that they believe that this should be a separate discussion. Just raise the debt limit, then we can talk about fiscal matters and how to rein in spending. So it's unclear if the White House will bite on this. I'm sure they will definitely put out a statement. But as you heard the speaker say there, he's kind of putting his hands up now. We've done our job. We've, met with you, and we haven't heard anything since. So when, Mr. President, are you going to come to the table? And I believe that is probably a message that you will continue to hear from the Speaker and from Republicans, because even Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has been kind of deferring to the Speaker and even put out a tweet shortly after the vote praising House Republicans for moving this bill forward.
Nikole, quickly take us a little bit behind the scenes, because yesterday afternoon, Kevin McCarthy was saying we're not going to change the bill. Then late last night and early this morning, some slight modifications were made. Explain how that evolved and what it says about the Speaker's relationship with his conference.
Well, as he knows, he has a very slim margin, and so that doesn't leave much room for error. So when they do put forth major pieces of legislation like this, he really needs buy-in from the entire conference. And so what Republican leaders say is that they have been having discussions with their members over the past several weeks, but there were some areas where members had concerns, particularly Republicans from the Midwest. They were concerned, for instance, about these biofuel tax credits and subsidies that would be rolled back because, of course, this bill rolls back parts of the Inflation Reduction Act and clean energy credits. And so many in that Midwestern delegation did not want to see those specific biofuel ones reversed because that could hurt them in their districts. So that was one of the changes that was made, taking that provision out so that those credits wouldn't be rolled back. There were also some concerns about work requirements when it comes to government benefits. Some wanted to see those requirements start sooner sooner in 2024 rather than pushing it to 2025. So Republican leaders argue these were just technical changes, even though from the outset they said that they weren't going to make changes to this bill.
Important changes that got it across the finish line. Nikole Killion, thank you so very much.
You bet.
So for more on the previous conversation Nikole and I were having about the future of the debt ceiling, let's bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed joins us, of course, from the North Lawn. Ed, the White House issued a veto statement about the House legislation. That is as expected. Is the White House watching what's playing out on the House floor this afternoon?
They sure are, and they're unimpressed. And until or unless the House Republican leadership calls to say we're ready to just raise the debt limit, at least for now, the White House says don't call. And so the stalemate will continue. What is happening here, though, is, of course, the House, at least, will be on the record on this issue. Democrats salivating at the opportunity to call out what Republicans in tougher districts are going to end up doing here by voting for various cuts that they argue could cost jobs and health care and health security for a lot of Americans. But it will put the resolution of this no closer, other than perhaps to fulfill what the president has been calling for, and that is, show me your budget, show me your priorities, and I'll show you mine. He issued his budget in March. Now they're taking this vote tonight, and at that point, everyone's on the record with something, and we'll see at which point then they might consider sitting down, but don't clear your calendar just yet.
Ed, we were showing our audience some ceremonial video from earlier at the White House. We'll get to that ceremony in a second, but one more debt ceiling question. There are lots of people in the economic world who are wondering if a recession might come in the third or fourth quarter of this year. And it seems to me that Republicans, if they weren't in this position, could say that's entirely the president's fault and responsibility. I imagine the White House is prepared to suggest, if there is a default crisis, to shift any and all blame imaginable on any economic news, indifferent or bad, to House Republicans. I'm wondering about the politics of this.
Wait, ask that again, sorry?
So the politics of it from the White House side, to say House Republicans are steamrolling us towards something that will create uncertainty, which, whether there's a recession in the third or fourth quarter or not, this could bring it about sooner.
Forgive me, yes, that's exactly their argument. It's their fault, because they're going against decades of precedent where Congresses of either party have gotten together and just done this. Certainly been a lot of squabbling and complaining about it and suggestions that federal spending needs to be reined in. Then Senator Biden did it once or twice. Then Senator Obama did it once or twice. But otherwise, they say it's got to be done. What we've seen the president start doing in recent days is, to paraphrase or quote Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, who said virtually the same thing the president is saying, which is, you don't screw with this. You don't touch the debt limit. You just raise it, because all you're doing is paying off previous spending that you all have already approved, and you're irresponsibly playing with the fate of the U.S. economy otherwise.